In a remarkable live television moment, Keir Starmer, the Labour Party leader, issued a public apology to Jeremy Clarkson and the wider public. This significant move comes amid mounting criticism of Starmer and the Labour Party. Starmer's televised apology not only underscores his leadership struggles, but also raises questions about his capability to govern the country. The question now is whether these apologies will suffice to ease public disappointment and restore the dwindling trust in his leadership. Let's discuss this in today's video. The UK has become a national experiment with its open border policies under the banner of Global Britain, a policy unpopular with the public yet championed by Labour as being in the national interest. Starmer's belated apology, acknowledging mistakes in approach and a fractured relationship with the public, comes amid immense pressure as voter support for both the Labour Party and Starmer continues to decline. Starmer admitted that the gap between what the government delivers and public expectations is significant. After 150 days of setbacks, he is attempting to reboot his leadership. However, the critical question remains: can Britain endure another 150 days of such governance? This is not just a press conference or a policy update. It's a desperate effort to rebuild his image and reconnect with disillusioned voters. The bigger question, however, is whether Starmer's apology can restore public trust after a series of missteps. What will Starmer offer in this reboot that is truly different? Will he address contentious decisions like cutting winter fuel payments for pensioners? And can he present a vision that genuinely resonates with the British people? Or is this merely a shallow attempt to repair the damage? One thing is clear: Starmer understands that time is running out. His leadership is at a crossroads, and this reboot could be his final chance to salvage his political future. Every decision he makes now could amplify voter frustration, especially among those who feel increasingly abandoned by a party that once pledged to prioritise their interests. The decision to cut winter fuel payments seems to have struck a particularly raw nerve. Pensioners, already struggling with rising living costs and economic instability, view it as a betrayal. This issue isn't merely financial, it's about dignity and respect. Many pensioners have contributed to the nation's economy for decades and expect policies that safeguard their welfare, not undermine it. Starmer's team has clearly underestimated the symbolic impact of this decision, and the backlash has been immediate. Starmer is also under fire for breaking his pledge not to impose additional taxes on workers, a promise now rapidly unravelling. The Labour leader is struggling to keep his word, and the outlook isn't promising. This public crisis is exposing significant cracks in the party's plans. Behind the scenes, Starmer's efforts to salvage his credibility have become a political disaster unfolding before our eyes. Only a few months ago, Labour supporters were jubilant, believing the party was on the cusp of delivering progressive policies and prosperity. But politics changes quickly, and now it feels as though we're living in an entirely different world. Labour's poll numbers are plummeting. Once 20 points ahead, the party now clings to a meagre 5-point lead within weeks. The honeymoon phase with the public is over. How did Labour squander such strong support so quickly? Cracks began to show almost immediately. Starmer's leadership started to falter under the weight of actual governance. His style shifted to indecision and vague statements. Labour had committed to making the UK the fastest growing economy in the G7, but Starmer has quietly backtracked on this pledge, citing global headwinds and unforeseen circumstances. The party's promises are crumbling, and Starmer's efforts to please everyone during the campaign have left Labour directionless. Once in power, the party seems incapable of making tough decisions or sticking to its pledges. The next storm involves a £35 billion tax hike, primarily through national insurance contributions. This will directly impact workers already enduring a cost of living crisis. Labour promised to protect workers, but has introduced policies that harm them, particularly low and middle income families. Social media criticism of Labour has intensified, with people feeling betrayed. Voters who cast their ballots for change are now left with unfulfilled promises. Labour has offered no convincing explanations, only silence. Can voters forgive and continue to trust the party, or will they recognise this betrayal? Starmer faces the monumental challenge of explaining these missteps, as promises are pivotal and the public won't forget. In a recent speech, Starmer claimed his government wants to address major issues so workers can enjoy the freedoms they value. Sounds appealing, doesn't it? But in reality, it's so vague that it could mean anything. Is Labour abandoning its core voters? It seems so. By attempting to redefine workers to include everyone, Labour is diluting its message. The party has become a blurry effort to please everyone, causing significant divisions within its ranks. Some Labour MPs want to stay true to their working class roots, while others aim to broaden the party's appeal. It's like a tense family argument over Christmas, awkward, strained, and likely to end in tears. One thing is certain, the road ahead will be tough, and with the backlash over the budget, Starmer will need all the support he can get. But is anyone still listening to him? Starmer is retreating, using vague excuses about global factors and unforeseen circumstances. It's like watching a magic trick fall apart. Remember Rachel Reeves's promise not to borrow more or raise taxes? That lasted as long as an ice cream on a July afternoon. The Treasury now claims it won't need to increase taxes as much as initially planned. In short, taxes will still rise, just not as sharply as first suggested. What about Labour's big pledge not to increase VAT, income tax, or national insurance for workers? They've now announced a hike in employers' national insurance contributions. So much for protecting workers, right? Unsurprisingly, voters are unhappy. Social media is ablaze with frustration, especially over economic growth and tax policies. Starmer is asking to be judged not by what he does now, but by what he might achieve in 5 years. A clear attempt to shift the goalposts. He's pleading for people to ignore the present and focus on his potential. Meanwhile, the SNP and other parties criticise Labour, accusing them of destroying jobs and business confidence. Labour is facing a severe credibility crisis, and Starmer's attempts to rewrite the narrative aren't fooling anyone. How many more promises will collapse? For now, Labour finds itself in a precarious position, with the Conservatives mounting an unexpected comeback, posing a significant challenge. The Conservatives have aggressively targeted Labour's weaknesses, particularly on economic issues. While Labour promised growth, the reality has been stagnation, allowing the Conservatives to paint them as economically inept. Immigration has become a hot-button issue, with record numbers of channel crossings and the Conservatives accusing Keir Starmer of failing to address the chaos. Polls reveal that the Conservatives are narrowing the gap with Labour, signalling a major political shift. Labour is struggling to defend its track record and articulate a clear vision. The once unified front is beginning to crack under pressure, with some MPs questioning Starmer's leadership capabilities. Divisions within Labour are becoming increasingly apparent, with reports of internal power struggles behind closed doors. Many senior politicians are concerned that the party is losing touch with its grassroots and failing to listen to ordinary members. Tensions are high within the Labour Party, with rumours of a leadership challenge circulating. Some MPs, frustrated with Starmer's leadership, are considering taking action to replace him. These internal disagreements risk plunging the party into turmoil. Starmer's approach to criticism, silencing dissenting voices and excluding them from key discussions, has only exacerbated the tensions. These tactics are backfiring, prompting many members to question his leadership. As the crisis deepens, Starmer's calls for unity are increasingly falling flat. Labour's current state is precarious, and the party's future hangs in the balance as opposition factions grow stronger. Starmer's political manoeuvring has raised eyebrows as internal unrest within Labour threatens to divide the party. Rather than addressing these issues, Starmer has pivoted to socially divisive topics, particularly immigration. Previously a proponent of open border policies, he has now adopted a tougher stance, criticising the Conservative government's immigration policies. However, he has stopped short of imposing immigration limits despite record migration levels, leaving many confused. Starmer faces criticism from both Labour's traditional left and the Conservatives. Some experts have suggested he adopt populist rhetoric to connect with voters, but this strategy is causing further discord within the party. Within Labour, divisions are clear, with many members worried about the party's misdirection. While Starmer has introduced new goals for living standards and public services, public scepticism remains high. Labour's economic position is shaky, with low growth and stagnant living standards, while tax policies raise concerns about job losses. The public is beginning to question why the economy hasn't recovered as Labour promised, eroding trust in the party and Starmer. Even supporters are starting to doubt his leadership. One long-time voter feels betrayed, having voted for change only to be met with broken promises. When asked, Starmer insists he should be judged after 5 years, drawing criticism for his perceived lack of accountability for current issues. Labour plans to address these priorities in an upcoming speech, but its impact remains uncertain. Starmer is also struggling with immigration, an issue he once used to attack opponents, but which has now become a vulnerability. Despite public demands for concrete action, Starmer continues to offer promises without tangible steps. Labour is now mired in a crisis of trust, with unfulfilled commitments on taxes and the economy. Polls show the party is in freefall, putting Starmer and his allies in a difficult position to maintain their standing. Rumours of a leadership change are gaining traction. The question remains, can Starmer turn the tide, or is this the beginning of the end for his leadership career?